Hey everybody, welcome to another Homeschool Haven tidbit. I'm Stephanie, for those of you that don't know me, and Michelle and I just throw these together. They're just the little tidbits that come up in conversations with mamas and parents that we've been talking to, and where we just share some ideas. So today I am going to focus on public school versus homeschool. So Michelle and I at Homeschool Haven, you can find us at homeschoolhaven.space. We're both elementary school teachers, and we have also become homeschool educators as well. And something that is a really common trying to figure out is what those two worlds look like. And I found there's a lot of misconceptions even for myself as I transitioned from public school teacher to homeschool educator, that I had to navigate through some things. And one of them is, I had a lot of people say, oh, Steph, you can homeschool because that's what you went to school for, so you'll be able to do that great. And yet it was like one of the biggest things that I found myself tripping up over, because I was trying to fit the classroom and this idea of 6 to 8 hours of classroom into my house, and it just wasn't working all the time. And I was concerned, and you have a lot of other people that would totally logically be concerned about that too. And I just wanted to offer today what it looked like for me to map out my classroom time each week and what I've learned about that and putting it next to my homeschool week, okay? So in my 5th grade week, when I would plan for the week or for the month, the way we had things set up was we had our early birds and our later gators. So half of my class would come during an early portion of the day, and the first hour and a half of the day was just my half of my class. And during that first hour and a half, that was totally dedicated to language arts. That's when we did all things language arts. It was our writing, our reading, our grammar, and that happened in that part of the day. And once that time finished after an hour and a half into the day, then the rest of my class would show up for the day, okay? And they would and during that first hour that we were all together, we would have math, okay? So we had that hour and a half of language instruction, language arts instruction, and then we had an hour of math. Now, at the end of the day, we had our later gators, and the kids that I had already done language arts with in the morning, they left, and I just repeated what I'd done in the morning with those same kids. So it was just not all schools in our district did it that way. It was kind of there was a little bit of bonus pay for being a teacher that worked these kinds of hours, but it worked well. But what I'm trying to get at here is you're looking at about a 6-hour day, okay, right, that your kid's at school. So the first hour and a half, so half of my thumb here, is taken up there's an hour and a half there of language arts instruction, right? Okay. And an hour of math. So I'm trying to do it here. We still have 3.5 hours left to our day, right? That's happening. And that was just the first thing that got blocked out. We were not going to interfere with math every single day. We were not going to interfere with language arts every single day, okay? So we've still got this other 3.5 hour time slot. What happened there? Okay, now you had your pull-outs time. Okay, so I'm going to take off this half hour here that I've got here for your recess and lunchtime. It's going to be gone there, okay, so that's gone. We've got 3 hours left to our day now. An hour is going to disappear for pull-outs. Now, this is the way it worked at our school. Is there were 4 different options for pull-outs. You had STEM. You had a STEM teacher. You had a music teacher. You had a art teacher, and you had a PE teacher. Okay, or was there a STEM teacher? Gosh, it's been a while, you guys. There were pullouts, and they'd go to 2 pullouts, and that would take up an hour of our day. Does that make sense? And they'd rotate through those. So one week you might have had PE and art, and then the next week you had art and music or whatnot. But that did take an hour of our day to make that happen. So we're after language arts being gone for an hour and a half, and PE and lunchtime. That's, we're down to 4 hours. Math took away an hour. Pullouts took away an hour. So we're down to 2 hours left in our school day. Okay. And so what happened with that? All right. What did we fit in there? Well, there was often once a week you had, an amazing librarian is one of the unsung heroes of like the world, okay? You would have pull out with an awesome librarian and having a neat experience there. And that librarian did more language arts. They got these kids excited about books. And it wasn't just let's show up and check out a book. These librarians do some mega neat things with these students. And that is a really valued time that your kid goes to. And it's the same thing with all these other pullouts, your PE, your art, your music. I mean, sometimes I'm like, hey, I want to go. Well, that sounds like fun, but I do need to go back and prep. So I'll take this time for that. So all of these awesome things, right? So maybe on a day you might have, so with these 2 hours, there's once a week where it's going to get disrupted by some of that, not disrupted. I think oftentimes it was a beautiful thing that they were doing there, but sometimes that time was going to be taken away for going to library. Sometimes our school had the coolest, what are they called? Assemblies. They would have the neatest assemblies where we would come together and lots of different things would happen. We'd have storytellers come. We would have chemists and all sorts of bubbling things happening. And we just had the neatest assemblies that our principal would bring in and create. And that was a really cool thing. And so, sometimes your entire 2 hours for the day is gone because you had an assembly and library that day, okay? Or sometimes the school counselor came in about quarterly and did some really cool activities with the kids for about an hour. Or sometimes, there's these sometimes spaces is basically what I'm trying to paint. That a lot of times your 2 hours got eaten up by these sometimes places. And you also have to take into account that part of these 2 hours is getting eaten up by transition times. If you've got a bunch of first graders that you're getting ready to go outside, in winter cold, if you're in a winter climate, to get all of those little, get them ready to do that, it takes time to make that happen. Or just transition from, we've got to clean up the classroom from this project and get across the school for that art class, or over there and ready for, anything that we need to be at. So that is a really important part of knowing that part of that, those 2 hours get eaten up by that. So when the 2 hours are not getting eaten up by this other space, they became our science and history time. And really what that turned into is 2 or 3 great science, units or experiences a year, and 2 or 3 great history experiments or situations a year. And so, I taught 5th grade. We had these fantastic state reports that we would do that I just loved doing. And that ate a lot of classroom time, And so that is what, us building it out ended up looking like, all right, and how a day in our classroom looked like. So it's easy when, you bring your kids home for homeschool to feel like, then they must be, if you find that they're getting through some things faster, well, they're wasting all that time at public school. No, I don't buy that. For me personally, something I tell my kids a lot is that there are really cool, great things about homeschool that you can't create in public school. And there are really great, cool things about public school that you can't create in homeschool. And the reverse is true. There are stinky things about homeschool that are not stinky there, back and forth with that, or stinky things in public school that are not stinky at homeschool. It doesn't need to be like one. I really don't want my kids to have this mentality of like ours is better and ours is, that they both worlds really do have a lot to offer and a lot of downsides. That's just part of it. But when you try to come home then and create this schedule for your child in homeschool, it is possible. So if you look at just math and language arts, what I can accomplish with my 3 kids now that I'm home with them, that took me an hour and a half a day in language arts and an hour in math. I would say, now I have a child with a learning disability. I have a child who's gifted. I have a child that's always just right there. And I can, math with my gifted child, I can get through a topic in 10 or 15 minutes that would take me a day or 2 in my public school setting. With my, and then they can spend several days here at home reviewing that and making that happen, that I was using the rest of the week sometimes to address in public school. We were just trying to learn one mega new topic that week and spiraling through it, which means that we were reviewing everything that we learned as we go. And in that process, I can do that in such a small fraction of a time. With my child that's always kind of right there, I find it's about a quarter of the time for my gifted child, about half the time for my child that's right there, and anywhere between a quarter and 3/4 of the time for my child who has a learning disability to explain a new concept and to make that happen with math. And so you can see that there are several times where we are finishing up, and it's the same thing with language arts. I'd say that those numbers about apply for us. We really could be done with math and language arts every day before noon. That's not an uncommon thing to have happen at our house. And then your science and history, I have found the way that what I wanted to do was to do every single day. That's what we're going to be in. And then I thought, no, that is not what even happened in my public school classroom. Not because I was wasting time, not because of it, we were doing something wrong. They were having beautiful experiences in these other places where time was being manipulated in different ways, and that was awesome. But here at home, if I just get to a few science things and a few history things a year, we're actually creating a wonderful experience too for my kids. Or you can really delve into those if that's something that you love. And so anyways, I hope this just tidbit helps a little bit to kind of understand that difference in timing and schedule that happens there. And so that I really can have that core time done within the first few hours of the day. And honestly, within a couple of hours, have accomplished language arts and math with my children. And then that frees us up in a lot of ways to do a lot of other different things of how we want to make that day look. Does that make sense? So I hope this brings some perspective maybe and some comfort too as you're trying to navigate that. I don't feel bad if my kids just get their math and language arts done now, because I do feel like that reading, writing, arithmetic propels a lot of their learning, and that even within their language arts, that there is a lot of social studies and science that I can incorporate into that. And I do believe in getting those hands-on in those projects. But if I only get to a few of them a year, that's what I was doing in my classroom as well. And so I think I started off with homeschool just thinking, okay, well, we're going to do science and history every single day, and we're going to have way more projects and way more of this. But really, it's okay if that doesn't happen, and it doesn't happen for me unless I outsource that. There are a lot of things that I outsource, and I will outsource a science class where once or twice a week they are doing something like that every day, and that's really cool because that can't be created as much within the public school awesomeness. So anyways, if you have any questions, comments, I'd love to hear from you, and you parents are doing awesome. Once again, come and see Michelle and I, homeschoolhaven.space, and we will chat with you later. Bye.